All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Let's begin. Exciting daf ahead of us today. Daf Nun, page 50. We are picking up on Mem Tes on base 49b, and we are picking up 2, 4, 6 lines up from the bottom. Amar Rav Nachman. Rabbi, our shir this morning is dedicated by the Shrek family in commemoration of the upcoming yard site of Freda Bas Moshe Yosef. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. The shir. Yes, I have. I'm gonna thank you. Just the page. Perfect. Thank you. The shir is also dedicated this morning in the Zechus of Rafua Shalema for Batya Sarah Bas Shena and Daniela Bas Ronit. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, they will have a complete and enduring refuah. Well, so with that, let's begin. Amar Rav Nachman, Chaylev Asoi Kekova in associate. So we'll say literally again the fats, the chaylev that is shaped like a kova, like a hat or like a helmet, does not plug up holes that exist within any of the internal organs. So the Gemara says, Heichi Amrle. So we'll say, which fat are we referring to? So the Gemara says, which fats? Amrle chiti de karkasha. Some say it refers to some of the fats within the rectum. V'amrle tarfisha deliba. Others say it refers to the fats which exist around the heart. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Shamis minid Rav Nachman tarti. I heard from Rav Nachman two halachas. Chimtza ubar chimtza. Chad sasim, v'chad lo sasim, v'lo yidana heminayu. So I heard from Nachman two things. There are these two different fats. One's called chimtza, one's called bar chimtza. One of them is able to plug up a hole, one of them is not. The only problem is, I don't know which is which. Rafuna bar China, Rafuna bar Rav Nachman, Amar bar chimtza sasim, chimtza lo sasim. They explained it's the bar chimtza fat that plugs up the hole. The chimtza fat does not. And how do you remember this? Amar Rav Tavos v'simanich yafeh koach haben mikoach ha'av. We'll say there's an expression that the son has greater vitality than the father. So therefore, again, a little bit of a play on words. The bar chimtza, right, has greater qualities than the chimtza fat. Okay, good. So the Gemara says, Hey chimtza ve'hei bar chimtza. So by the way, which fats are these? The chimtza and bar chimtza fats. Tashma dam Rav Nachman inhu meichel achli. But take a look at Rashi. Meichel achli le dekasavi chilef tarhu. So let's listen to this. So Rav Nachman felt that in general the chimtza, or we'll see one of these fats is permitted to be consumed. Meichel achli, tap of nun. Ulididan mistam nami losasim. So is it possible that ultimately, again, a fat that for Rav Nachman ultimately was permitted for consumption, for us doesn't even have the qualities that it's able to go ahead and plug up a hole? Rashi says, Ulididan, top Rashi nun amud aleph, Ulididan afilu mistam nami losasim, betmiyah, Lididan b'nei Bavel, Nehidelo achlile, lahachi mia mechaskina le b'cheleftar, lio sosem shmamina, hahi depligi ba b'nei Eretz Yisrael, b'nei Bavel karile. Rakali Rav Nachman bar chimtza. So I'll say, interestingly enough, apparently this bar chimtza fat was the subject of machlokes. Rav Nachman ultimately said that the bar chimtza fat ultimately, again, was permitted for consumption, ulididan, but for Bnei Eretz Yisrael, right, Bnei Eretz Yisrael, they felt that it didn't even plug up the hole. To which the Gemara said, ulididan mistam nami lo sasim, diskashta, so the Gemara says, let's qualify this. Diskashta kuli amalo pligida aser. I will say, when it comes ultimately, again, to the fat, this is called the bow of the stomach. We're going to get into this a little bit more. When it comes to the fat that's on the bow of the stomach, everyone agrees that halacha lamaisa, it is aser. Ki pligi. So we'll say, where does the machlokes come up? The iyasra, on the fat of the bowstring. So I say these are just different parts of the stomach. Some say that ultimately, again, the fat on the bowstring of the stomach, everyone agrees that it's permitted. So where do they argue on the fat of the bow of the stomach? So what says Ravavi saying mekamsin? I will say mekamsin means the process by which, if you want to go ahead and eat some of the fat, or if the fat is permitted, you shave off the top layer of the fat before consuming it. If you take a look at Rashi, not yet. Not yet. So mekamtzin. V'chin amar Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai said mishum zakin echad mekamtzin. That if you want to eat of this fat, you have to go ahead and shave off the top layer of the fat. Both say the logic behind that is because even some of these permitted fats sit next to other parts of prohibited fats. So because of that, because there's the contact between the permitted chaylev and the prohibited chaylev, therefore you go and you remedy that by removing the upper layer of the permitted chaylev. Amar Rav Avia, Hava ka'imna kamed Rabbi Ami. I was standing once before Rabbi Ami. Kamtzu v'havi leva achal. They removed the top layer of the fat. They gave it to him and he consumed it. Sham'id Rabbi Chanina. Havakai kamed Rabbi Chanina. So we'll say the attendant of Rabbi Chanina was sitting before or was standing before Rabbi Chanina. Amrale kamutz havli de'echal. So take off the upper layer of the fat and give it to me to eat. Give it to me to eat. So the Gemara says, Chazye dahavikamechasim. So Rabbi Chanina saw that his attendant, his servant, was like wavering. Rashi says, Kamechasim, Rashi says over here, Loshon lo sachsom megamgem. He was unsure about whether or not that this was actually permitted. Amrle bavla at gum shadi. He says, you are a Babylonian. Rashi says, that's not an insult, by the way. Bavla at, Rashi says, shinagabu isser. You are a Babylonian who does not eat this type of fat. Gum chatoch ad ikarakula v'hashlech. It's okay, just throw it away. Throw it away. So the Gemara says as follows. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, B'nei me'ayin shenikvu, supposed to this next case. So B'nei me'ayin, we'll say intestines, right? Intestines that developed a perforation. V'leicha sos masan. And I'll say liquid, we'll discuss this in just a moment, but liquid from the intestines comes and plugs up the hole. Kshera. Ultimately, again, the animal is kosher. Ma'lecha. I'll say what liquid is this referring to? Rav Kahana, shirka demaya denofik agav duchka. It's apparently again the sticky liquid of the intestines that comes out as a result of squeezing the intestines. Gemiri chavei Rabbi Abba, me Rabbi Abba. So we'll say the chaverim of Rabbi Abba learned out from Rabbi Abba. Umanu, and who are we referring to? Rabbi say Umanu, Rabbi Zera. V'amrli chavri Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Zera. And others say it was the friends of Rabbi Zera learned from Rabbi Zera. Umanu, who were they? Rabbi Abba, Berei Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, we'll say so that bottom line, first wide line on Nun Amud Aleph. So here is the halacha. Halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel b'treifa. Halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel be'evel. So this is actually very interesting. So now we'll say they said two things in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon Gamliel by the case of treifa, and the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon in the case of avel. Halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel b'treifa hadamar. So we'll say the halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is what we just said. That if the intestines develop a perforation, right, and that perforation is plugged up by the liquids of the intestines, right? And that's the sticky liquid. I don't know the technical term, but the sticky intestinal liquid that only comes out when the intestines are squeezed. If those liquids plug up the hole, the animal is kosher. So number one, halacha follows Rabbi Shimon like that. Furthermore, the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon by avelus. What's the case by Avelus? What's actually quite interesting. So Mahi, Ba'avel Mahi, what's the case of Avelus? Here we go. This nan. We'll say third line down, Nun Amud Aleph from the wide lines. Kol Shloshim Harishonim. We'll say for the first 3 days, just one word of background to this. In Hilchos Avelus, we'll say, in the laws of Shiva, so the first 3 days are often reckoned separately than the rest of the remaining days of Shiva. For example, there's a halacha which is not really observed today as much, but the Shulchan Aruch quotes an opinion that says we're not menachem avel for the first 3 days. Don't do a nichum avelim for the first 3 days, right? So because the first 3 days, the Gemara says, are reserved for bechi, right, for intense crying. Nichum avelim then comes for the subsequent days. So again, for a variety of different reasons, this halacha is not really observed as much today. But in any event, the first 3 days are always looked at as a separate independent unit from the last 4. Now watch this. Kol shloshim harishon. We'll say, so if the avelim, here's the following situation. You have a family who is sitting Shiva. One of the family members was not there for the beginning of Shiva. So the shaila, of course, is, does he join the Shiva clock, we'll call it, of the rest of the family who are already sitting, or does he sit Shiva according to his own schedule? So here we go. Kol shlosh yamim harishonim, for the first 3 days of Shiva, bami makom karov kore mona imahem. Let's say if the aval was close by. So again, if the aval who was not sitting with the family was close by, as long as he shows up sometime within the first 3 days, he goes according to the Shiva count of the family members who are already sitting. Now, if you look at Rashi just a moment, first white line in Rashi, Bami makom karov, im lo haya echad min ha'avelim babayis. If one of the mourners was not in the Shiva home, v'haya b'makom karov, but he was close by. What's the definition of close by? B'soch mahaloch yom echad. What's the definition of close by is less than 1 day's journey away. Now, the logic therefore is he could have known about the loss. So best to understand the case over here, the case is actually where one of the family members did not know about the death. He did not know. So what happens? The rest of the family member died, buried. The family members are sitting Shiva. There was another family member who just found out. So what's the halacha, Rabbi say? So as long as he is within 1 day's journey, what we call makom karov, and he shows up within the first 3 days of the Shiva, he goes according to the rest of the family's count. Goes according to the rest of the family's count. And halacha l'maaseh again sits Shiva with them. So the Gemara says, mimakom rachok, but if he was too far away, which I will say is defined as more than a day's journey away, then mona liatzmo. Halacha l'maisa, he has his own count. If he's makom karov, I will say, ultimately, again, he's counted along with the family from the beginning. Makom rachok, he goes according to his own count. Mikan ve'elech, but I will say after the first 3 days, afilu ba mimakom karov mona liatzmo. After the first days, even if he's coming from somewhere close by, nevertheless, what? He counts on his own. Rabbi Shimon Omer, afilu bayom hashvi'i. Even if he doesn't show up till the 7th day, last day of Shiva, ba mimakom karov mona iman. So we'll say Rabbi Shimon holds that halacha l'maisa, as long as you are makom karov, whenever you show up, you go according to the count of the family members, right? You go according to the count of the family members. So we'll say machlokes Rabbi Shimon and the Tanakama. Tanakama ultimately telling me if you show up within the first 3 days, you're counted like them. After the first 3 days, you're on your own. Rabbi Shimon, as long as you are makom karov, no matter when you show up, you can always count in accordance with the family who is sitting. Amar, man dehu iski ve'isik ve'agmara l'shmaite mi pumei demara. So he said, who is going? If only I would have the schus to be able to hear this halacha straight from the mouth of the man who said it. Therefore, again, Kisalik, when he went to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechel Rabbi Abba Reid Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Mar Halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel B'Treifa. So he found Rabbi Chia bar Abba and he said, tell me, Rabbi, did you say that the halacha follows Reb Shimon Gamliel in the case of Treifa? Amar leha in halacha amri. No. I think you got a little bit mixed up. I said the halacha is not like Reb Shimon Gamliel bar Treifa. Once again, remember, just to point out over here, we're talking about a very specific case of the intestines, where there's a perforation in the intestines, and the intestines are then, the hole is plugged up by the intestinal fluid. So now we're saying that halacha doesn't follow Reb Shimon Gamliel. What about Reb Shimon? What about Reb Shimon be'eval mai? What about? Did you say that halacha follows Reb Shimon by avelus? Amrulei plugten inhu. So in reality, this is a machlokes. Di'itma Rav Chisda Amar halacha, v'chin Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha, v'Rav Nachman Amar ein halacha. So we'll say you have a machlokes, right? Some say the halacha does follow him, others say halacha doesn't follow him, but Rav Nachman says ein halacha, ve'ein halacha k'Reb Shimon Gamliel b'Treifa, v'halacha k'Reb Shimon be'eva. So we'll say bottom line, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel by Treifa, and therefore again I will say if you have a perforation in the intestine, and that perforation is plugged up by the intestinal fluid, the animal is a treifa. It doesn't work. But the halacha does follow Rabbi Shimon in the case of avelus. And therefore, what Rabbi say, even if the avel shows up on day 7, right? As long as what? He was b'makom karov, halacha l'maisa, he sits shiva in accordance with the schedule of the family who are already sitting. We'll say why. The truth is, this is part of a larger principle. Da Amar Shmuel, halacha kedivrei hamekel be'evel. Because we also have a general principle that says the halacha follows the one who is lenient in matters of avelos. So we'll say that has to do with the fact of a general suffix dirabanan, right? Avelos again is dirabanan, and a lot of right. So therefore, the halacha follows that the mekel by avelos. Good. Amar of Simi Barchia, makifin b'bnei me'ayim. So we'll see actually a very interesting case. You could compare. So we'll say one of the shilas that comes up is the following situation. You let's say have a perforated intestine, although it's not unique to the intestine. It could be anything, and you have a concern. Did these perforations develop before the shechita or after the shechita? So of course you'll say, who cares? So we'll say, care a lot. Why? Before the shechita, the animal is a treifa, right? After the shechita, the animal could be totally fine. We saw this yesterday, if you remember again, with the case of the parasitic worm, right? Did the worm come out of the lungs before the shechita, after the shechita? So we'll say, so let's say now I have a situation, I'm just not sure. So what can I do? The Gemara says, "Makifin b'bnei me'ayin." We'll say, so what you can do is you could compare intestines. Now, what does that mean? You could compare intestines. Rashi says, look at Rashi, "Makifin b'nei me'ayin nimtzu nikuvim ve'ein anu yadim kol shchitim la'achar shchita." If I have intestines and the intestines are perforated, but I don't know, did the perforation occur before the shchita or after the shchita? Nokvin nekev echad bitzido. V'roin imar ehen shavin k'shered debiadu shela achar shchita. It's actually amazing. So what do? So I have the intestine. I'm holding the kishka, right? And what happens? It has a perforation. I don't know, did the perforation occur before the shchita? It's very simple. So what do? Make another perforation. See what it looks like, right? So apparently, I will say a perforation that occurred before shchita will look different than a perforation which occurred after shchita. So because of that, says the Gemara, make another perforation, and ultimately again compare the two side by side. So the Gemara says, so you could compare. So the Gemara says, we'll say, now the novelty in this is, I would have thought just very simply, what's the halacha? If you're not sure, what's the halacha? The chumrah, right? The chumrah, savek d'oraisa the chumrah, and therefore again it's a treifa. We'll say the chiddush over here is I am permitted to go ahead and compare these things. So the Gemara says, "Hano b'nei me'ayim da'asul kamei diravas." Let's listen to this. There was this case of these intestines that showed up before Rava, right? The Imam just showed up. So what happens? Akfinhu v'lo idmi. So we'll say, so what happens? So Rava does the comparison test. He wasn't sure did they become perforated before shechita after shechita. So we'll say what he does is he makes another puncture. But the truth is the punctures didn't really look the same. Watch this. Asra Misharshia Bracer. Misharshia son comes along. Nemashmish Bahu V'idmu. So we'll say, what did he do? This is amazing. So the son of Misharshia took his hands and rubbed it all over the new puncture. And suddenly, V'idmu, they looked alike. Now we'll say, now what's the pshat? Amr lei. So we'll say, so what did his son realize? His son realized they're not going to look alike. Well, let's say, so Rava turns to his son. Amr lei minalach. What did you just do exactly? Amr lei kama yadi memashmashu bahani mikamei delesi mikamei demar. So we'll say, so ultimately again, Rabbi Shmuel says to his father, Rava, father, do you know how many hands were on those intestines? Right? In other words, you're not the first person to take a look at these intestines. A lot of people look at this, say, so again, the more they're handled, so it looks different, obviously. You know how handled intestines look, so again, the more sets of hands you have on it, the more schmutz gets on it. So this is amazing. So again, what the son was saying was, to compare apples to apples or intestines to intestines, right? You mamish, like the new perforation has to look at least as handled as the original perforation. So Amrlei Chachim Bari B'Trefes K'Rabbi Yochanan. So I'll say Rava said about his son, Misharshia, my son is as wise when it comes to Trefes like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan apparently was considered to be the expert in Trefes. Incredible, we'll say. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, the Amri Tarvaihu, Makif and Bereya. Similarly, again, we could compare lungs. If you have a puncture in the lung, you could compare one set of lungs to another set of lungs. Or I will say, I take that back. You don't even have to compare one set to another. What you could do is what? You just make another puncture. And you compare what the first puncture looks like. Say, the good thing is, in the second puncture, you know with absolute certainty that's what? That it happened after shchita. That you know. So now you know what a post-shchita puncture looks like. Good. Compare it to the first puncture you have and see what you got. Amar Rava, lo amar ela ba'osaruga. So also Rava said that's only in the same row of lobes. Avam me aruga la aruga lo. Rava say, but obviously from one row of lobes to another row of lobes is not going to work. Ve'elchasa afilu me aruga la aruga. So Rava say, but that is not true. In fact, the halacha is even from one row of lobes to another row of lobes, midaka ledaka. Rabbi said that is only true. Rashi says midaka ledaka fila behema acheres dugmasa umigasa lagasa avalo migasa ledaka avalo midaka lagasa. Rabbi said, but however, the animals themselves must be comparable. Ultimately, again, so you could even compare one set of lungs to another set of lungs, but again, the animals have to be in the same weight class, or at least the same categorical class. Abai Rava. So we'll say, see, interestingly enough, so now these are all halachas. So first of all, again, with the intestines, we see, and again, it's not just unique to intestines, but apparently one of the things that you have to keep in mind with perforation comparisons is how many times the organ has been handled. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to lung comparisons, you could even compare from lobe to lobe, and that's not problematic. Abai Rav Makif and Bekana. Rabbi say you can go ahead, and if you have a hole in the Rabbi say this will be a case in the trachea. So ultimately, again, you could compare holes in the trachea, mikana lakana. So we'll say the kana is the upper band, right? So you can go ahead and compare one part of the band to the other part of the band. Amar papalo, amar ela ba'osa chulya, aval michulya lechulya lo. We'll say, so again, remember, the chulya is a 3-ring part of the band. So you can only go ahead and compare, right, within the same 3-ring band. But from one chulya to another chulya, you can't. Vilchasa, and actually the halacha says differently. Afilu michulya lechulya, so we'll say, mibar chulya lebar chulya, aval lo michulya lebar chulya, v'lo mibar chulya lechulya. So we'll say, so the halacha is, you could compare one 3-band to another 3-band, but what? What can't you do? You can't compare a hole on the top of the trachea to the bottom of the trachea. So we'll say, so on the top of the trachea, you could compare one hole to another hole, even if they're not part of the same 3-ring band, but you cannot compare a hole on the top to a hole on the bottom. So we'll say, so again, the idea being, you see clearly the Gemara is espousing over here, it just has to be a similar comparison. So similar is defined by the same type of animal and ultimately, again, same general region, not the same region. But halacha l'maisa, again, if it's too dissimilar, then ultimately, again, you cannot go ahead and compare them. Good, so the Gemara goes weiter. Amar Zeiri, chalcholes shenikva. I will say this is the rectum. If the rectum was perforated, so what's the halacha kshera? Ultimately, again, the animal is still kosher. Why? Because you're both saying, in an animal, this is in a behema gasa, so the rectum is situated between the hips. So interestingly enough, even if the rectum is perforated, the hips hold it in place. So there is, I guess the concern over here is about some type of like collapsed rectum, something which would render the animal a treifa. But over here, because the hips hold the rectum in place, therefore there's not a problem. The kama. So we'll say ultimately again, how much has to be intact? Am Rabbi Yochanan, makom hadavik berubo. As long as it adheres to the hips in its majority, ultimately again, the animal will be kosher. Shelo b'makom hadavak b'mashu. But we'll say ultimately again, if it's not in the place where it's attached, then even a mashu could be problematic. Amru Rabbanu Kamei Rav Mishmei Rav Nachman. Amar lav mi amina luchu. Have I not told you before? Lo titlu bei, Amad Beis, lo titlu bei buki siriki. We'll say, do not go ahead and attribute to Rav Nachman empty vessels. In other words, we'll say, which is another way of saying, you guys are always misquoting Rav Nachman. Right? How many times have I told you, stop misquoting Rav Nachman? We'll say, so in order to stop hanging on him empty vessels. Rather, Hachi Rav Nachman, this is what Rav Nachman said, Makom hadavak afilu nita kulo kasher. So we'll say, it's actually very interesting. So Rav Nachman said, we'll say, when it comes to the rectum, in the place where it is, quote unquote, attached to the hips, which really means like supported by the hips, afilu nital kulo kosher. Even if the entire rectum is missing, the animal is still kosher. V'hu shenishtayir bo k'dei tefisa. As long as there is enough of the rectum that is left to hold on to. We'll say, how much does that mean? Amar Abaye kimali bitida betura. We'll say, for example, in a Torah, in an ox, right, in a shar, as long as there's the width of a finger left of the rectum, ultimately, again, the animal will be kosher. So I will say it's actually quite an amazing halacha, and as you can see, codified by the Shulchan Aruch itself, that halacha l'maisa, as long as, right, even if the majority of the rectum is actually missing, right, the halacha is as long as there's some little bit left in the area between the hips, the animal will not be a treifa. Incredible. Okay, weiter. Says the Gemara, hakeres hapenimis. So if you remember again, so the Mishnah said, the Mishnah began speaking about the stomachs of the animal. This is the, so the Mishnah said, hakeres hapenimis shenikva, if the inner stomach went ahead and was perforated, o shenikra rov hachitzona, or ultimately, again, or if the majority of the outer stomach was torn. So I'll say, so now, this is the keres hapenim shenikva. If it's just perforated at all, it's going to be a treifa. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Heyid nasan bar shila reish tabchia ditzipuri lifnei Rebbe. So I will say, Nasan bar shila, who was the chief butcher in Sipori, he testified before Rebbe, Mishum Rabbi Nasan. Ezo hi keres hapenimis. We'll say, what is this keres hapenimis? So it's often translated as the paunch. So what is this? So the Gemara says, sanya. It is what is called the sisum. Sikum, right? Cecum, right? The sikum. Sanya dibi. It is supposed to say, interestingly enough, so the way we're going to translate this is, sikam, I guess, is the biological term, right? The way this is translated in the Gemara, this sanya dibi means it's the pouch at the beginning of the large intestine. So meaning we're going to see the stomachs, we're talking about four different stomachs, or four different parts of the stomach. So again, this sikam is the pouch at the beginning of the large intestine. V'chin Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, sanya dibi, right? It is this sanya dibi, this sikam pouch at the beginning of the large intestine. So Rabbi Shmuel says, it is istumcha de karsa. So ultimately, again, we'll say the way this translates is the stomach of the pouch. Right? So again, we're going to see specifically to what they're referring to. They have a machlokes, so I'll say as to what the Mishnah uses the word keres, and the Mishnah tells you that by keres, if it has a perforation, ultimately the animal is a treifa. What we're beginning to see, I will say, now this is important because as you already saw from the Mishnah, different stomachs have different psulim. So therefore, again, our definitions are going to be very important. So we see over already that there's a little bit of machlokes as to what the keres is. So Avasi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, makom tsar yesh bekeres. There is a narrow part. There is a narrow part in the keres. Ve'ini yodea ezehu. But I do not know where it is or what it is. Okay, very helpful. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Nafal karsa bebiras. Well, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, thank you very much. The keres has just fallen into a pit. So that expression of the keres has fallen into a pit is another way of saying you are of no help to us, right? In other words, that you've described the part of the stomach and you don't know where it is, you don't know what it is, so you haven't contributed anything to this discussion. I will say, what is the keres? The keres is the part of the stomach from where it narrows and goes down. Rabbi Yaakov bar Nachmani Amar Shmuel, makom she'im bo milas. Rabbi Yaakov bar Nachmani will say that the keres is the part of the stomach from where there is no milas. I will say, if you look at Rashi, it's actually very interesting. Makom she'im lo milas. It's almost right across in Rashi. Makom yesh bekeres chalak she'in sham osot semer shegorin beros min hakeres. Well, so apparently, on the inside of the stomach, there are these wool-like fibers, I guess that aid with digestion or something. So therefore, I will say when you get to the keres, the inside of the stomach is smooth. So the keres is the part of the stomach that is smooth without those fibers. Rabbi Avina Amar Geniva Mishmei Drav Tefach Beveshet Samoch Lekeres Zohi Keres Hapenimis. So what's another definition? It is the tefach of the veshet, which is closest to the keres. That is called the keres hapenimis. So we'll say, so the tefach of the veshet. Remember again, the veshet is the esophagus. So the tefach of the veshet, as it enters into the inner keres, as it enters into the inner stomach. The tefach of the veshet as it enters into the keres, that is the keres hapenimis. Amri b'ma'arava mishmeid Rabbi Yossi bar Chinina. Kol ha'keres kulo zoi keres hapenimis. Rabbi said the entire paunch, right, of the animal. This is called the keres hapenimis. Ve'ezui keres achitzon. So what is considered to be the outer keres? Basar hachofes rov hakeres. Rabbi said this refers to the flesh which covers over the majority of the keres. Rabbi bar Afuna Amri mifar asa. See, he ultimately says that. If you look at Rashi, he says mifarasa tzat hakeres haroes hakarka hanira miyad keshe poschin habehema lahotzias hemeayim v'aynu demefari sheichet debar tafri. So it says it's actually very interesting. He says that the keres, right? He says mifarasa. The keres, I will say, is the part. If you were see, a lot of these are described when you are cutting open the animal, and the way the animal is cut open is when it's hanging by its hind legs. So ultimately, again, if the animal is hanging by its hind legs and you cut it open, that ultimately again is the keres, the mifar asa. My mifar asa. We'll say, what is the mifar asa? Amravavia hecha de pari tabchi. Ultimately, again, it's the place that ultimately, again, where the tabach, where the butcher cuts open the animal. Benarda avdi kiraba barafuna. In Narda, they conducted themselves like Rabbi Barafuna. Amr Rashi Damemar. So Rashi said Damemar, Kol Hani Shmaisisa Mai. So I said, what do we do with all of these? So I said, I just want to point out, all of these discussions are trying to figure out definitions of the keres hapenimis. In other words, I will say, apparently, the Mishnah is using terms which the Gemara feels are not totally descriptive. In other words, how do we know they're not totally descriptive? Because halacha l'maisa, you have machlokas about ultimately again what it means. So what do I do with all of these particular opinions? Amalei, kulu shaykhin b'drav barafuna v'dravasi. Right? So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. So Udravasi. I'm sorry. Kula Sheikham Udrabarafuna. So I say all of them are Sheikh Udrabarafuna. Udravasi on Yochanan Mai. Amalei Kvar Pirshav Acha Barava. Udrabi Avino. Udibnei Ma'arava Mai. We'll say, what about the opinions ultimately in Rabbi Avino and Bnei Ma'arava? So we'll say again, we're trying to figure out how to plug in all of these definitions. Amalei Hani Vadai Pligi. These certainly argue on the definition of the Mishnah. So fine. So we'll say, for our purposes again, so what we emerge with over here, the Rambam adopts the position, Chullin does as well, that the entire keres is called the keres hapenimis, so what we call the paunch, right? What we call the paunch of the animal, that is the definition of the keres hapenimis for us, right? That ultimately again is called the keres hapenimis, and therefore again halacha l'maisa, if it develops a nekev, if it develops a perforation, then halacha l'maisa, again, the animal is a treifa. Rabbi Huda Omer Begidola. So we'll say, remember again, going back to the Mishnah for just a moment. So the Mishnah said, Rabbi Huda holds by, I'll just read to the Mishnah, Rabbi Huda Omer, Rabbi Huda Omer, Hagidola Tefach, Vakitana Beruba. A large animal ultimately again will become a treifa with a tefach, and the kitana ultimately again, the kitana with the rov. So it says the Gemara. Okay, Rashi in Mishnah already says Gdola Kitana Lava Gasa Dak Kamer Ella Al Shakata v'Shagad Im Nikra Tefach Shfar. We're going to define this now in the Gemara anyway. Says Rabbi Huda Omer Begidola. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah. So we'll say we are on Nun Amid Beis 50b at the two dots 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 lines up from the bottom. I see a lot of blank expressions, so I'm going to give you the Mara Malcolm. Now let's say so again, I'm just assuming you're so riveted that you have lost the place in the Gemara. Good, 18 lines up from the bottom, Nun Amud Beis 50b. So Rabbi Huda Omer, Rabbi Huda says, B'gidola, Amr Rabbi Yan Bar Yafes, Amr Rabbi Lazar, Lo Gidola Gidola Mamish, V'lo Kitana Kitana Mamish. So I'll say Rabbi Huda doesn't literally mean Gidola, doesn't mean Gidola, a large animal, and Kitana doesn't mean a small animal. Ella, Kol shenikra ba tefach, v'lo haviru. But what it means is, I will say, this conversation is still continuing regarding the keres, right? We're still guarding the stomach. So the Gemara says, Kol shenikra ba tefach, v'lo haviru ba, zohi sheshaninu begidola tefach. I will say, any time that the keres has a tear that is a tefach long or a tefach wide, even though that tear, it does not comprise the majority of the stomach, nevertheless, that's the case, I will say, of Gedola Tefach. So the keres is large. How do I know it's large? Because I will say a Tefach tear does not go ahead and comprise the majority. Nevertheless, that's going to be problematic. Rupa v'lo havi Tefach. What if, on the other hand, the majority of the stomach is torn, right? But yet what? It's not a tefach. So we'll say, so that's the case of where there's a rove of his torn, but it's not a tefach. Zohi sheshaninu b'ketana beruba. We'll say that's the case where we learn that what? That even if it's a katan, right? Even if it's small, but it's torn along the rove. Ruba v'lo havi tefach pshita. We'll say, I don't understand. If it's a case where the majority of the keres is torn, but it's not a tefach, why don't you need the Mishnah to teach, why don't you need Rabbi here to teach that that's a treifa? That's obvious. I will say any time that the majority of anything, truth is, remember again, for many of the organs you don't even need a rove. But certainly again, if you have rove of it is torn, even if it's small, so therefore again the rove is not a tefach, is that not pashut that the animal is a treifa? Lo tzricha dahavya tefach b'mashu. Both say what it's saying is that rove of the keres is less than a tefach. Why? What would I have thought? Ma'u detema ad mikri ba tefach lo havi treifa. So I will say, in a case like that, I would have thought that it only becomes a treifa once there is at least a tefach of a tear. Kamashlan that is not the case. Amr Geniva, Amr Rav Asi, Nikdira Kisela Treifa. Ultimately, I will say, if the stomach was pierced like a sela, if you take a look at Rashi, Nikdira Rashi says, Kimin Aruba Al Gula, Verochav Hikdira Kisela Mapea Rechav. So I'll say this case over here is that it was pierced Kimin Aruga Gedola, like in a circular fashion, Verochav Hakidera Kisela, and the width of it is like a sela. Ultimately, again, it is a treifa. Why? Shem timtach tamod al tefach. Because we'll say if you were to stretch this out, you would be able to get the tefach. So also what it's telling you over here is if the nature of the perforation is round, so as long as it is the size of a sela, not as long, but if it's the size of a sela, then ultimately again that would translate into a tefach and therefore would be a treifa. Amr b'cheber Abba ledidimi farshlei minei digniva amavra din naharda. So we'll say I heard an explanation of Gniva's statement while I was standing on the bridge of Narda. Kisela kshera. Ultimately, we'll say if it's like a sela amount of perforation in the keres, ultimately again it'll be kosher. Yoser mikasela. If it's more than a sela, treifa. Ultimately again, then the animal will be a treifa. The kama yeser mikasela. We'll say how much more than a sela does the perforation have to be in the keres ultimately to make it a treifa? Amar Rav Yosef kegon da'ailis tlas kashyasa b'tzipa b'duchka below tzifa b'revacha. So I'll say ultimately what it means is as follows. That would be, so we'll say if you want to understand what a sela-like perforation means in the keres of an animal, so we'll say it is a hole that is large enough, da'ailin tlas kashyasa b'tzipa b'duchka, which means what we'll say, Rashi's kashyasa are garine tamra, date pits, 3 date pits, b'tzifa, we'll say b'tzifa means with, Rashi says, im ochel, 3 date pits with the dates on them. Or in other words, 3 dates. 3 dates, we'll say, biduchka. You could get 3 dates through that opening. Biduchka, we'll say, means, look at Rashi. B'tzifa im ochel neshar siyosei kisholchon osei kansu shosha benekev bidochak. Bidochak means that what? You get it through that size hole, but with force. You have to push it through. Below tzifa, but we'll say 3 date pits without any dates on them, or just date pits, beravcha. Ultimately, it could go through easy. So we'll say, so that's the size. So what it's saying over here is, because we'll say normally, again, a tefach would be measured like in length, right? So remember, all these shurim will be given as a tefach in length. So if you have a cut like a tefach, the Gemara is just trying to figure out, what if it's just not a straight cut, but let's say again it's like a circular cut, something like that. So how big would such a cut have to be? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, if you want to understand, it's the size, if you were looking, let's say, at a circumference, it's the size in which you could get 3 date pits with the date flesh on it, bedochak, or 3 date pits by themselves easily through it. That would be the size of a hole in the keres that would render the animal a treifa. All right, we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up at the 2 dots tomorrow. Shkoyach.